do you want to do the roll call?
Yes, Chairman. Councillor Brennan, do you have any declarations of interest?
He's muted.
Sorry, you're mute.
Sorry, yeah, I've got it now. Yeah, I'm trying to do two things at once. Sorry, I can't multitask. Yeah, being serious, present and no decorations. Thank you, James.
Thank you. Councillor Bowman.
Present, no decorations.
Councillor Lawn.
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Nurden.
Present, no declarations.
And the other member here is Councillor Prutton. Do you have any declarations of interest?
No, nothing at all. Thank you.
Sorry, and Councillor Ward.
Present, no declarations.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So we move now to the minutes of the last meeting. Any matters of accuracy that you want to raise or inaccuracy? No? No? So we're happy to accept these as a true record?
Yes.
Okay. Consider that done. Any matters arising from those minutes that you want to raise? No? Gosh, we're getting through like Champion the Wonder Horse, if you remember that far back. Okay, moving now to the first item on the agenda, the endorsement of the Norfolk Strategic Planning Framework update. As I understand it, Paul, you're going to lead on this, but as I understand it, this is just an update on the matters that we've discussed previously and reports that we discussed previously. So there should be no great shocks or surprises here. Is that correct?
Yes, that's broadly correct, Chairman.
Okay, well, I'll hand over to you without further adu and lead you to go through the paper.
Thank you very much.
Not every page, please.
No, I certainly won't. I'll keep my presentation relatively brief, but clearly we can pick up any questions as they arise. So, yes, what you have before you today is the latest iteration of the NSPF, as you correctly identified, Chairman. This is not the first time that the Council has seen the NSPF. It is, in fact, the third iteration of the document, with Broadland District Council having previously endorsed and been a signatory to two previous versions, firstly in 2018 and then in 2019, as is explained in para 2.4 of your papers. Probably the critical element to note about the Norfolk Strategic Planning Framework is that it plays a key role in the planning process, in the sense that it substantially demonstrates how the council meets its obligations under the duty to cooperate, which is a formal legal requirement that we need to meet as part of the plan making process, and also fulfills the National Planning Policy Framework's duty to maintain statements of common grounds in regards to the Norfolk Strategic Framework, those statements of common ground with other Norfolk authorities. It will no doubt be unsurprising to members to hear that maintaining the up-to-date nature of the Norfolk Strategic Planning Framework is particularly important for Broadland District Council at this point in time, given the proposed submission of the Greater Norwich Local Plan that this committee saw earlier in the year, later this year when it goes through its next stage of submission to the Secretary of State. Now, really, in terms of the NSPF, it's a very dense document with an awful lot of useful information in it. But the key elements are really the agreements, and they're summarised for you on pages 2 to 6 of the Norfolk Strategic Planning Framework document itself, which is pages 21 to 25 of your papers. These are essentially the key areas that of work where Norfolk authorities will work together as part of their ongoing cooperation, and also set out key considerations that are taken into account when we produce our individual local plans. Now, as I alluded to at the start of my presentation, this is an update. It's not completely fresh. The relevant areas that have been updated are set out in paragraphs 3.2 to 3.6 of your papers with the relevant references. I won't go through those line by line, other than to perhaps note that under 3.2 item G, The reference there is to section 8.6. It should be section 9.8. I think the confusion there is it's on page 86 of the NSPF, and I've conflated one with the other. So that is in there. It's just that it should be 9.8, not 8.6 as reference. That's page 105 of your papers. And in terms of just going down to the final of the paragraphs I've referred to, 3.6, just to note that items G and H should actually follow on from one another. They should be a single item. So if there was any confusion there, it's simply that we've put in an additional sub-paragraph that shouldn't be there. As summarised in terms of the actions, we propose that the Council continues to endorse the latest iteration of the NSPF. It's being completed under the guidance of the Norfolk Strategic Member Forum, of which the planning portfolio holder for Broadland is a member, and has been agreed by them to be reported back to you. I've already mentioned the importance in terms of the plan making process. Particular areas of work to note going into the next year for the NSPF are set out under para 4.1. Again, for the sake of brevity, I won't repeat them here, but just to draw attention to it. Which brings me just to conclude my presentation in referring to the recommendation. As you'll see, this is a document that will go all the way through to Council. So the recommendation for this panel is that it advises Cabinet to recommend to Council that it endorses the update to the Norfolk Strategic Planning Framework and agrees to remain a signatory to the document. At that point, Chairman, I'll finish my presentation and open it for questions.
Lana, is there anything you want to add first? No? Okay. Questions or comments then, please. Nigel.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, Paul, I'm just interested. I was looking through it last night and this morning again. I see a reference. I can't give you the precise page number. You'll probably know yourself. But about road developments, particularly with the A47 dualling, with Beach bypass, etc., etc. So obviously they come under Highways England, but we don't appear to have any input into this paper from Highways England, according to the signatories or the acknowledgements. So are we actually in contact with them to get that information from them?
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, absolutely. I'm getting a lot of feedback here. My apologies if you are also. We're absolutely in contact and within our statutory roles. I mean, what this document seeks to identify is those key strategic issues, and clearly road improvements that are within the auspices of the Highways England rather than ourselves are part of those strategic issues that we as joint authorities need to address. What this document attempts to do is recognise where those are, sets out clearly a status and importance to the local authorities by reference to those, but it doesn't necessarily need to cover those specific authorities, and there may be a number of areas where that's the case as in terms of signatories, but we will through our standard processes engage extensively with other bodies and stakeholders, including Highways England, and you'll be aware of organisations including the A47 Alliance, which a group of members and officers who come together to try and promote that strategy. And this is sort of how this type of document extends out into other operations of the council, if that helps as an explanation.
I think it's also fair to say, is it not, Paul, that there's a lot of interaction between Highways England, the local authority and parish councils as well. So there's a lot of consultation that's actually going on, even though it may not be documented here.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. As part of the statutory processes for a number of the road schemes that are going through at the moment, there's a full programme of engagement in accordance with the relevant statutory legislation, and that includes all the bodies you've mentioned.
Thank you, Paul.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Susan.
Thank you, Chair. Just happy to say that happy to support the document and the updated changes. Obviously, joint working across the county is a necessity in today's environment to make perfect sense that the Marine Management Organisation should be signatories to this framework. But there is just a couple of things that I'm just a little bit confused with. So, and this is probably something totally simple, but it's my OCD. It says that there is on page 10, 25 formal agreements, but there's actually 29, isn't there?
Oh,
Am I wrong, Paul?
oh, you're muted.
Bear with me a second. I'll just get it. It may well be that I'm referring to the original number of agreements rather than those with the additions
Updated.
today. So it will be as set out in the paper, which I'm just trying to get to. Bear with me a second. I'll skip through the document. So yeah, there are summarised on pages. Here we go. 21 through to 25. There are in fact 31 agreements.
Oh, right. Okay.
So I suspect I was referring to an earlier draft, so my apologies
Okay.
for the confusion.
Okay, that's fine. And my other issue is on education. I appreciate that comes under county, but there's literally just one page, and I can't find the page now, but there's literally just one page in relation to education. It clearly states that we need to have more schools, but do we not have more joint working in relation to the schools and where they're going to? And I can't find the page that I'm looking for, but it is the page in relation to education. Do we not have more input into it?
Okay, I think it's on
99.
page 99 of your papers.
Yeah, just found it.
Section 9.6.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, schools issues are clearly universal in the sense of they're a strategic issue, but the individual documentation of particular improvements are often quite locally based. From a Greater Norwich perspective, this isn't the sort of beginning and end of that infrastructure planning process. Members will recall that they saw earlier in the year the 5-year investment plan and annual growth programme, which is the SIL investments that are an offshoot of the Greater Norwich Infrastructure Plan. Now, the Greater Norwich Infrastructure Plan is the forum where Broadland, Norwich, South Norfolk, and in partnership with Norfolk County Council, capture the sort of key strategic infrastructure requirements going forward to meet the plan. That reflects the education capital programme, including a detailing of the specific education improvements that are needed or planned. It's a living document and does change, as you'd expect. And indeed, this year we agreed again to invest £2 million worth of SIL into that capital programme to augment Norfolk County Council's central capital programme. So this isn't the end of the process. I think what it seeks to do again is simply recognise that it's a strategic issue and then leaves it for the councils to develop their own detailed mechanisms for planning that. And for us, at the sake of, or for the fear of repeating myself, that is the Greater Norwich Infrastructure Plan and the 5-year investment plans.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you very much.
Okay, Sue, you're right with that?
Thank you. Thank you.
Any more questions or comments?
Sorry, just thought of one more.
Okay.
Apologies, Chair.
All right.
So the figures that we've got on the economy, again, I need to find where that comes under. Are these figures, projected figures, obviously pre-COVID? Are we going to be looking at this in 6 months' time or a year's time and see very, very different projections of growth?
Oh,
I mean, they'll be based upon the most recent information available. The reality is, I think, in terms of the economy, that it's going to be a little bit of a moving feast in terms of understanding actually what the detailed impacts are. So if the question is, are these figures likely to change going forward? Yes, I think they are. They always did in truth, but I suspect they'll be subject to perhaps a much greater range of flex here. I think that the critical element for us is as we go through this document and continue to update it, we take stock, A, of what the changes are and differences to what's projected based upon the latest available information, and also the extent to which those key measures in that restart plan that we're referring to, that's page 53 of your document and one of the changes this year, the extent to which they're effective, are changing, are moving and how we as a council, not just in its terms of its planning function, but its wider function, are reacting to those. So yes, they're the latest figures we've got available. Coming out of COVID, is the world going to change? Yes. Does that mean there's going to be a degree of variation that goes beyond those in previous years? My expectation is yes, but we don't quite know how yet.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Any more questions or comments? Lorna, do you want to say anything, or you're happy? You're happy. Okay, well, in the absence of any further questions or comments, then can we move to the recommendation? The recommendation is that we advise Cabinet to recommend to Council that we approve this report. So are you minded to approve it? I see that as unanimous.
It looks to be unanimous, Chairman, yes.
Okay. So I believe, James, this brings us to the end of the formal part of the meeting, does it?